It was a cold evening in a quiet, forgotten village. A tired stranger, soaked by the rain, knocked on the door of a poor woman. She had barely enough food for herself, but without hesitation she invited him in and offered him her only meal. That moment lasted just minutes, but what happened 20 years later was something she never imagined. The stranger disappeared into the night, and life went on. But 2 decades later he returned, and what he brought with him left the entire village in disbelief. This is a true story of kindness, forgotten favors, and how a single act of compassion can come full circle in the most powerful way. If you believe that small good deeds still matter in this world, hit that subscribe button and stay with me till the end. This story might change the way you look at life. In a quiet corner of the countryside, far from the cities and noise, there was a small village where time moved slowly. The people there lived simple lives. No tall buildings, no traffic, just dusty roads, old trees, and houses made of clay and wood. Everyone knew each other. And in the middle of this peaceful place lived an elderly woman named Amma. Amma wasn't rich. In fact, she was among the poorest in the village. Her small house had only 2 rooms, one for sleeping and one where she cooked over a fire. Her clothes were worn but clean. She had no modern luxuries, no family living with her, and barely enough money to buy fresh vegetables. Yet there was something about her that made people respect her deeply. It wasn't what she had. It was what she gave. Every morning, Amma swept the front of her house, watered a small patch of tulsi growing in an old pot, and prepared a simple meal, usually just rice and lentils. She would often offer water to passers-by, sometimes a piece of bread to the beggars. She didn't have much, but what she had, she shared. Villagers said Amma had once had a son who moved to the city many years ago. Some said he never returned. Others said he had passed away. No one really knew. But they all noticed the sadness behind her gentle smile, especially when she looked toward the road as if expecting someone. She never complained. Never asked for anything. She lived with what God gave her, and that was enough for her. She believed in one thing. No matter how poor you are, there's always something you can give. A kind word. A warm meal. A safe place to rest. As the sun rose and set over the hills each day, Amma's life flowed like the river nearby, quiet, steady, and full of silent strength. She had no idea that one evening her unshaken kindness would be tested, and that one simple choice, to help a stranger with the little she had, would not only change her life, but would echo far beyond the walls of her humble home. It was late evening when the sky turned gray and the wind picked up. Clouds gathered quickly, and soon, heavy rain began to pour over the village. Most people had already shut their doors, lighting lanterns and settling in for the night. But Amma sat by her small window, watching the rain fall. She had just finished her evening prayer and was about to warm up the little rice she had saved from lunch. The firewood crackled gently, casting a soft glow across the room. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. It startled her. No one ever visited her at that hour. She stood up slowly and opened the door just a little. There, standing in the rain, was a man, completely soaked, shivering, his clothes dusty and torn. His eyes looked tired, his face gaunt, and his hands were empty. He didn't say much, just looked at her and asked, "Ma, please, can I get something to eat?" Amma looked at him for a moment. She didn't recognize him. He wasn't from the village. A stranger. Alone. On a stormy night. She could have closed the door. She had barely enough food for herself. But her heart didn't allow it. She opened the door wide and said, "Come in, son. You're wet and cold. Sit by the fire." The man stepped in quietly, looking around the modest home with tired eyes. Amma took her only clay plate and scooped out the last bit of rice. She added a spoon of lentils and a piece of dry roti. It wasn't much, but it was everything she had. She placed the plate in front of him. "Eat slowly. You must be very hungry." The man looked at the food with a strange expression. No one had shown him this kind of care in a long time. He didn't speak much. Just whispered, "Thank you." And then he ate, silently. When he finished, Amma offered him a dry cloth to wipe himself and spread a blanket near the fire so he could rest for the night. The next morning, the man was gone. He had left quietly before dawn, leaving behind the empty plate and folded blanket. No note. No name. No promise to return. To Amma, it was just another moment of service. She didn't think twice. She only hoped he found his way safely. What she didn't know was that this short encounter had just planted a seed. A seed that would grow silently for 20 years, and then return, unexpectedly, powerfully. After that rainy night, life in the village returned to its slow, familiar rhythm. The storm passed, the fields dried, and people went back to their daily routines. For Amma, nothing seemed to change. The man who had appeared at her door vanished as quickly as he had come, like a leaf carried away by the wind. She didn't speak much about him to others. Maybe she didn't think it was important. Or maybe, deep down, she knew kindness was not something to be announced. She had helped someone in need. That was enough for her. But life didn't get any easier. Her body began to slow down. She could no longer carry heavy water pots like she once did. Her eyesight weakened. Her hands ached when she cooked. And on many nights, she went to sleep with just a cup of tea and dry bread. Still, Amma never lost her strength of spirit. She remained the same soft-spoken woman who greeted everyone with a smile. Children in the village would sometimes stop by her house, and she'd always find a small treat to give them, even if it meant going without for herself. Her heart had more wealth than her pocket ever did. Seasons came and went. The small tulsi plant by her window grew taller, now held up with a stick. Amma often sat beside it, looking at the road, watching strangers pass, carts roll by, the occasional city visitor coming to see the farmlands. And yet, she never once saw the man again. Years rolled on. 10, 15, 20. She aged quietly, her face now a map of wrinkles, her silver hair always tied neatly in a bun. The world was changing. Mobile phones came. People left villages for cities. The young became busy. But Amma's life stayed simple. Grounded. Sometimes she wondered what happened to that man. Did he survive? Was he all right? Or had he forgotten the woman who fed him with her last meal? She never asked for anything. Never expected a return. But what Amma didn't know, what no one could have imagined, was that the man had never forgotten her. In fact, he had been searching for her. And the day he found her again would be the day everything changed. 20 years had passed since that stormy night. In those years, the village had changed. A few new houses had come up. Some old ones had fallen. The trees had grown taller, and a new road had been built that led toward the nearby highway. But Amma's small house still stood, weathered by time, but filled with the same warmth. She now walked slower, her back slightly bent, her voice softer. She spent most of her time sitting by the window, watching the world go by. People still greeted her with respect. She was like the grandmother of the village, quiet, wise, always smiling. Then, one sunny morning, something unusual happened. A large, black SUV rolled into the village. Shiny new, out of place. It stopped near the well, and out stepped a man in a clean suit, polished shoes, and sunglasses. He looked around with curiosity, like someone searching for something buried long ago. The villagers watched from a distance. Some whispered, "He must be from the city." Others said, "Maybe he's here to buy land." But the man had only one question. Is there an old woman who lives alone in this village? A kind woman, small house, near a tulsi plant. At first, no one knew what he meant. But then someone said, "Are you talking about Amma?" His eyes lit up. Amma. A boy was sent to call her. Amma came out slowly, unsure of what the fuss was about. She squinted at the stranger. He looked so different, well-groomed, wealthy, nothing like the man from the stormy night. But then he took off his glasses and said softly, "Ma, do you remember me?" Silence fell. Amma stared at him. Something in his eyes sparked a memory. That tired face. The way he had whispered, "Thank you," all those years ago. Her eyes widened. "You're that young man from the rain." He nodded. And then, to everyone's shock, he bent down and touched her feet. "You saved me when no one else cared. You gave me food when you had nothing. I never forgot." Tears welled up in Amma's eyes. She had no words. He continued, "I was jobless, lost, and hungry. That night gave me more than food, it gave me the will to live. I promised myself that if I ever made something of my life, I'd find you. And he had made it. He was now a successful businessman, owner of a chain of hotels, living in the city, helping others like he was once helped. The villagers gathered, speechless. No one knew what to say. The woman they'd seen as poor and ordinary had once saved a man who'd now returned with more than just gratitude. But what he did next would leave the entire village in awe. The man stood tall before Amma, his voice trembling with emotion. "Ma, you may have forgotten that night, but I lived with it every single day. Your kindness shaped who I became." The villagers looked on, still unsure what to expect. But then he turned to the crowd and made an announcement that would shake the entire village. "I have come back not just to thank Amma, but to honor her. From this day on, her life will never be the same." He reached into his coat and pulled out a file. In it were documents, legal papers, stamped and signed. "This house," he said, "will be fully renovated. A new roof, clean water, a kitchen with gas, proper flooring, and a small garden she always wished for. And she won't have to worry about food or medicine ever again. I've arranged for a caretaker, and a monthly income will be deposited into her account for the rest of her life." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Amma covered her mouth in disbelief. "But that's not all," he continued. "This village gave me the most important lesson of my life, humanity. So, I've decided to give back." He pointed across the field. "I've bought that land. A small health center will be built there. Free treatment for all villagers. And right next to it, a library for children, named after Amma." People clapped. Some cried. Others just stood frozen. It felt unreal. Amma, trembling, whispered, "Beta, why are you doing all this?" He smiled, eyes full of tears. "Because you saved me without knowing who I was. You didn't ask for my name. You didn't ask what I could give. You gave because your heart told you to. Now let me give, because my heart remembers." He took her hand gently. "You called me son that day. Let me be your son from today." Amma's lips quivered. Her old hands reached up and touched his face, gently like a mother would. "You were always my son. I just didn't know you'd come back." The villagers cheered. Some brought sweets. Children danced around Amma's house. It wasn't just a surprise, it was a miracle they had all witnessed together. In a world where people often forget those who helped them, this man had come back, not just to repay a meal, but to uplift a life and a whole village. And all of it began with one plate of rice and a stranger in the rain. That unforgettable day slowly turned into evening, but the warmth it brought lingered like a soft light in every corner of the village. People sat together outside Amma's house, still in awe, still talking about what they had just witnessed. But in the middle of all the praise, attention, and excitement, Amma remained calm, humble, quietly observing everything with folded hands and moist eyes. A local teacher asked her gently, "Amma, how did you know to help him that night? Weren't you scared?" She smiled faintly and said, "No one is ever poor by sharing food. He was someone's son, someone's brother. Just because he had nothing didn't mean he was nothing." Her words settled into every heart listening. The young children who often ran around without paying much attention now sat silently, their eyes wide. For the first time, they saw that a small act of kindness had the power to travel across time and return bigger than anyone could imagine. The village elder spoke. "All these years, we saw Amma as a kind woman. But we didn't realize we had a living legend among us. She fed a stranger, not knowing that she was feeding her own future." That night, people went back home not just with a story, but with a new understanding. Many realized how often they overlooked the simple things. A kind word, a small act, a helping hand. Amma had nothing material to offer that night, but what she gave was priceless. And in return, she didn't just receive a new home, she received dignity, love, and respect from an entire generation. Even the businessman, now sitting beside Amma like a son, shared a powerful truth. The world is full of people who chase money, power, and fame. But the one moment that changed my life didn't happen in an office or a city. It happened in this small house, with a warm plate of rice and a mother who didn't even know my name. The next morning, before leaving for the city, he made one last request. "Ma, whenever I feel lost again, can I come back here?" Amma smiled. "You'll always find your way here. This will always be your home." And so, the story of a village woman who offered food to a stranger became a tale passed down in that village. A story parents told their children, teachers shared with students, and villagers reminded each other of in times of hardship. Because in the end, it wasn't about charity. It wasn't about reward. It was about the unseen ripple of one good deed, and the truth that kindness, no matter how small, never truly disappears. Here's the final scene, full circle plus, closing with subscribe reminder, approximate 500 words. Weeks passed after the visit, and Amma's life quietly transformed. Her old house was carefully renovated, not replaced, because the man said, "This place holds the memory. It's not the walls, it's what happened inside them." Now, the floor was smooth, the roof strong, and the kitchen filled with the warm smell of proper meals again. A soft bed replaced the straw mat, and a small fan buzzed gently in the corner. But Amma stayed the same. Every morning, she sat by the window next to her tulsi plant, just like before. The difference? Now children came to read from books in the new library, built with her name on a small brass plate. Women from the village often visited her, not just for stories, but for advice. Young men touched her feet in respect before heading to the city. And sometimes the businessman, the lost man she once fed, returned with his own children, calling her Amma, with love that couldn't be faked. The village had changed. And it changed not with money or power or politics, but because one woman gave food to a stranger in the rain. One evening, as Amma sat watching the sunset, someone asked her, "Do you ever regret giving him your last meal that night?" She chuckled softly, "I didn't give him my last meal. I gave him my best one." In that simple line was a deep truth, that what we give with love, we never really lose. It finds a way back, stronger, brighter, and more meaningful. And so, the story came full circle. Not everyone saw it happen. Not everyone believed it at first. But those who witnessed it would carry it forever. A story of how one plate of rice changed not just a man's life, but an entire village. As the screen gently fades to black, a message appears. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe that small acts of kindness still matter in today's world, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon. Because here, we believe in stories that move hearts, not just algorithms. Thank you for watching. Until next time, remember, one good deed can echo for a lifetime.